If you've been looking for a way to play live sets using Ableton Live and controllers and to really be able to interact with your music, but still sound really loud if you're playing like after a DJ who's playing mastered tracks, you've come to the right place. So what I'm going to be showing you today is my personal template. It's the Ableton Eric Heiermann template. You can buy it over on rapidflow.shop. However, you can just follow along here and use this as inspiration for your own ideas if you want to just make your own template. Now I'm going to take you over like high level, how this is configured, how I've managed to set it up in such a way that it sounds just like a mastered record, but still gives you all the possibilities for interacting with your music in real time using 3 controllers. Before I do that, let me give you a quick demo of what it sounds like, and then we're going to dive into the details. Okay, I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of an overview of how powerful that is and how direct and hands-on you can be when you set up your live set like this. So just so you have a bit of background on me, I've been making music for 25 years. I'm a trained sound engineer. I played a lot live on all kinds of trance festivals back in the day and in clubs all over Northern Europe. And these days I do Rapid Flow, where I offer this knowledge and these premix templates and premix sample packs for other people to leverage. And what you're going to hear today, everything is coming straight out of Ableton. If you look around the studio, everything else is switched off. What we're hearing is Ableton. So with a setup like this, what you can do is you can go to a party with basically your laptop, your audio interface, a pair of headphones, and a couple of controllers, and you're ready to go and you're ready to play. And that's always been my goal, because I think, you know, once I also played like with MS-20 synthesizers and all stuff on stage, but it became really a trip sometimes if you're traveling to some like island somewhere in Greece and you're carrying this massive box with a synth. So I try to make it in such a way that everything is super condensed and that you can play like with basically like just like a shoulder bag, a DJ bag. So what do we have going on? How is this template set up? And especially maybe let's start with, why does it sound so punchy and clean right out of Ableton? Well, we have a sick fat mastering chain going on the template. This was actually done by Earthbound Mastering that we collaborate with. And yeah, he's done some really cool stuff in mid-side. There's saturation on it. There's an OT. There's like bus compressors, a clipper, multiple limiters. In this case, I'm actually even using Gold Clip. That's what I use when I play live myself. But for the version that I've released, I've used the Ableton Clipper, because yeah, Gold Clip is silly expensive. The cool thing when you get this is, for example, let's say you don't own the clariphonic equalizer. In the template that you can download, I've put in a curve on an Ableton EQ that approximates this very closely. And I've done that with all the key things that are in this template, so that if you get this and you don't own all the third-party plugins that are used here all over the place, you can still get the same sound. So for example, the Eventide black hole reverb that gets used in a couple of places, I did an impulse response, so you can just load that if you don't have it and you'll be on your way. So the template has a mastering chain. It also has live performance effects, which is the stuff that I was tweaking here, which actually, if I take you to that channel, you can have a look at here. It's this super channel, so you can see there's like, you know, low cut, high cut, there's like a send to a washout with some side chaining on it, a reverb, delays, and all that kind of stuff, with which you can interact and do like drops and build-ups and stuff very much on the fly. Here, let me show you again what that sounds like. So yeah, super fun. It's really great to be on stage and just be able to do stuff kind of very quickly. However, something that's happened to me on stage sometimes is that you're maybe, if you've done something really complex on screen and you actually need to be able to looking at your screen to manage it. I've had it multiple times that there was like full sunshine on my laptop screen and I could see nothing. So what I've realized is you need to be able to manage your live set blindly, which is, why I set up all these controllers, and I'm going to take you through how these controllers work. And, I've also played in the past live sets where I just wrote up my tracks, the final mastered versions that were on the release somewhere, and then, just added a bit of live synth noodling on top of that. Totally fair. I mean, you made the track, so if you want to play live like that's fine. But what this is about is being able to interact with, the crowd and feeling the vibe and, playing the break longer or not, and really, really playing live using Ableton and controllers. So the whole way this is set up is it's not only for performing live, but I also use exactly this send template to produce. And when I'm done with my track, I sequence it and I bounce it from here and send it to a mastering engineer or master it myself, depending on. So let me show you something. So how are the controllers set up? Let's have a better look at this. Maybe I can take you over to a different cam so you can see it a bit better. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So basically what you have going on with these controllers, these basses out here a little bit, make this a little bit easier to talk over. So what we have going on is that the controllers are dedicated to channels in the live set, because having things move around on you on stage I found to be massively confusing. As you can see, I've even gone ahead and labeled stuff so that I always know exactly what's going on, because that fader is always doing my hi-hat up, this is always my kick drum and things like that. So, and I would really recommend you set yourself up like that, because if your faders are moving around on stage and you're gonna have to try to manage your track sequence, manage your DJ effects or your live performance, and then on top of that try to remember which fader is where now, believe me, it's not gonna go well, especially if you're playing at like 5, 6 in the morning, which is the time that I always had to, which meant, either you come there super sober or you've been there all night already and you kind of have to get it together to then play live. So everything is hard-coded. I have kick, bass, snare, harmonic elements, melodic elements, a hook, a pad, an atmospheric sound, and like a piano or some other sound that I want to play there. All of these sounds have high cuts that are also assigned here, and then this master fader has its high cut here. I don't use a master fader on stage because it can only lead to trouble. You basically just want your master fader to always be on 0, otherwise you may clip or you may be sending low level. And on this it's the same, but here is mostly percussion stuff, which is a really cool trick I picked up from Ben Bomer, which makes a lot of sense. So here is like hi-hat up, hi-hat open, hi-hat 16th. And the cool thing is you can change the decay of all the hi-hats using this knob here, so you can adapt the vibe of your hi-hat pattern to the speed you're playing at and kind of the vibe that you're in. There's this percussion which manages percussion tracks. I'll show you a bit more of that. It's not just an audio track, but it also manages a group of everything that's running on this Launchpad Mini. All this is just loops that I can bring in anytime, anywhere in the set. And if I change scenes, they don't stop. I'll show you in a sec how I configure that. Groove is like tom and other kind of, counter rhythm elements. Extra is what it is. Like you can just put stuff there where you don't know where to put it. A lot of stuff ends up here in my set. Vocals, vocal chops, break beats, and like spoken word samples, or when I'm producing my loop cloud output goes here so that I can pull it down quickly, because sometimes like samples are massively loud coming out of loop cloud. So that's the basics here. These two tracks also double as DJ set tracks. So if I'm bringing in tracks that I've already finished, I have a part on the template here, let me show you, where I can load tracks in that are part of like a DJ set thing more. And then these fader here, because you can assign fader to multiple tracks in Ableton, right? These tracks bring in each of those DJ tracks, and then I have a high, mid, and low, like basic DJ EQing going on, so that I can mix those tracks into each other and move from a live setting to a DJ setting and vice versa. So that's those, and then I have like a de-esser here for the vocal samples in case the vocal, maybe you grabbed some old historical sample and it's like just a bit aggressive, you can de-ess it, which helps to tame it down a lot. There is, this is a super nice element. Let me take you back to this view here. I've often found that depending on where you're playing, whether it's a club or a festival, depending how the system has been set up, that maybe the low end is either too much or too thin in where you're playing. And changing that all on stage with like plugins and stuff like I've explained can be massively stressful. So what I've done is I've mapped the fundamental frequencies of the kick, bass, and toms to these, and I can either do a cut on all of them or do a boost on all of them, which basically means my whole low end can be super clear, and I can get it either bassier or thinner depending on how the PA is responding to my sound. Because I've been in some clubs where like my bass was probably just too loud mixed, or these things happen, and the whole club was like vibrating and resonating. And back then I was like, oh God, I have to go into my master channel and pull out some low end. But these days now I can just go like that and just pull some of that low end out of all of those channels, which is like huge, the amount of times I've had to use that, and it really saves you. These two are dedicated to the basic straight snare. Let me show it to you because it's kind of nice maybe to have a listen to it. So if I pull both of these, I have a clean snare for maybe like a kind of minimal, very deep part, I don't know, like. But if I want to make the snare a bit atmospheric, I can bring in some snare reverb, and I can bring in some snare delays. And that combined with like maybe the percussion elements, it can be super nice. So let me just take these out. So you see how you can make stuff feel like more immersive or kind of, more clean and minimal. It's a really nice little hack to have that on dedicated faders. So as you can see, everything is there to be able to be grabbed really quickly, which is, just like super nice and makes all the difference when you're playing live. All the percussion loops have an envelope shaper on them so that you can make them feel kind of like bigger or like longer or shorter. Let me show you. So now they're kind of minimal. And now you can pull them out a bit more. Which again is a really great tool for like shifting the energy of your set as you're playing. And then one thing that I really love that I kind of did recently is I have a button here called Highs Stop. Which this basically, like if I want to take a track, how sometimes tracks go from like being really full and kind of, really happening, and then they just go really deep and kind of, fall into themselves to get like a nice cruisy part. This is the button for that. So let me show you what that sounds like. You heard how all the hi-hats, all the percussion loops, all that stuff fell out. That's because all the stop buttons for those kinds of tracks are mapped right here. Let me show you about this pad and the percussion stuff, because that is actually something also that's super nice that's going on here. So at some point I realized that I found it A, super boring, and B, super time consuming when I'm producing to always be looking for like hi-hat loops and crashes and reverses and like white noise or whatever. So what I did is I built myself my own personal library of all kinds of loops, and props to the people that make all kinds of cool loops. Like I have stuff in there from Audio-10, from PML, from myself, all kinds of stuff, just whatever I like I use, And color coded here, I know that if, for example, and I can use this here to set this to stop, like let's say I want to stop all these loops and I just want to bring in a ride, for example. Let me show you how easy that is to do. So having a bank of samples like this with which you can very quickly and easily kind of, again, just add in the typical elements that you always have going on in dance music. So I have like, top hi-hats, ride, crashes, reverses, impact, noise risers, shakers, it's all basically there. And this is a really great workflow I could recommend to you. And it's so easy to set up. Basically, you create yourself 8 tracks, because this thing has like its 8 cell structure that you can use. Send that all into a group so you can control it all on one fader, which in my case is this percussions fader there, which does all those loops, but it also does the percussions track. So it depends on, you know, what I'm using. And then remove all the stop buttons for this entire row of percussion loops, because then when you're progressing through your set, you're not going to switch off the nice like ride loop that you've just brought in, because you've gone to the next scene of your set. Now, this is a really important part that I need to cover, of how to play through your set if you've created it on session view, which I would very much recommend for playing live. That way you can really interact with your audience and you know, be really in the moment and live with them. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of how this set starts, or let's say this track here, which is, let me think, I think it's these elements here, yeah. And I'm just going to kind of reduce this a little bit to just, yeah, make it a bit smaller. So this track, as you can see here, starts with just this kind of vocal thing and this melodic thing going on. And if you've been producing dance music, you know that, you know, the next step in is you would either add kick and bass, or like another thing that builds it up, a white noise wash, and then you drop in your kick and bass. So basically, when I go to the next scene on my kind of track sequence, which in Ableton for a live set is like top to bottom, I can bring those elements in. So let me show you, and I'm going to make it a little bit like extra tricky. I'm going to remove the low end from the output so that I can fade those elements in. Let me show you. So you see? So now I'm like in the build-up, in the intro to my track. Now let me move to the next thing. And now we're like in the, you know, cruising part, let's say, of this track. And start to bring in my hi-hats. Little kick cut. And let's bring in an open hi-hat. Maybe let's bring... And let's transition to the snare. And now let's bring in the kind of hook element. Let's do this by removing kick and low. So I'm obviously doing this really quick now to just give you a quick overview. If this is going really fast, I have a 1-hour video where I take you through this in way more detail, but I realized I wanted to show you a bit more how to actually play live with this. But if you want to go really in depth, go check out that video. I'll link it here in the comments, because that one goes way more in depth how all this is set up. But basically what you've seen me do now is shift through the cells of my live set and go from part of a track to part of a track to part of a track. And then, like, you know, the next thing would be the break, for example. Here, let me show you. Bring in a bass. So if you set up your track like this, the cool thing about this, like if people are vibing, you know, with what you're doing and you just want to stay on the break for a while and just mess around, it's super easy to do. Like, let's just say I'm going to trigger some random stuff here. So theoretically, you could hang out in this kind of a vibe, you know, for as long as you like. So you're very flexible in being able to respond to vibes people are giving you. However, if you need to get back to something that feels like a track, your whole track is basically like just one click away by going to a part of your track where you have, let's say, for example, here, where you have everything set up. Okay, is there anything else here that I really need to show you that's super important to understand how this works? I think that's the most essential stuff. So like, as you can see, everything is set up in such a way that it's kind of like a no-brainer to do all the moves and all the stuff that you typically need to do to progress a dance track's vibes in certain directions. So you have like high cuts on every element, you have a low cut on your whole mix, you have a high cut on your whole mix, you have send reverbs and delays and like washout effects with side chaining, you have snares and snare reverb, snare delays, you have de-essers for like vocal samples, DJ setup. So it's kind of all there for you to just come in here and drop your MIDI clips, your audio clips, and create your own live set so that you can leverage the structure and the system that I've built here over decades of messing around with Ableton and playing in places. So I'm super happy to share this with you. You can grab it over on rapidflow.shop. If you want to build it yourself, obviously, having seen this and seeing also my long video, you can make something similar that's just your own. But if you want to save time and have a massively powerful workflow that will sound incredible right off the bat, like this is what I can share with you. I've left in the first track that is in this live set, so you have reference levels for your kick, bass, snares, all that stuff, so you know how loud I've mixed stuff to be able to hit like a good loud output of like -7, -6 lufs. And let me show you how close we are to a master track here. So this is a professionally mastered track of mine, and this is the sound coming off of it. So as you can hear, like level-wise, frequency content-wise, etc., it's all super close. So if you want to save yourself massive amounts of time, go grab this. If you want to build it yourself, more power to you. Check out this video. Check out the video where I explain this in a lot more detail. And if you'd been wondering what's the workflow for actually playing live with a setup like this, I hope that this has been helpful. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Bye-bye.